Hi, so it's been a while since my last tutorial, and this one was inspired by a series of renders I did for Instagram recently. I had to break the tutorial down into two parts. So in this part, we're going to cover the build of the skateboard. And then in the next part, we'll look at how I kind of approached each of these animations and then texturing up. Let me know in the comments below if there are any other tutorials you'd be interested in my work, or the compilations, or the work I have on Instagram. Let's get into it. Okay, so to get started, what we're going to do is if we go to the kind of right hand view, we go to options and then configure, and then over here I'm going to actually bring in this image, this stock image I found of a skateboard. So I can kind of use this to like roughly position and know exactly where to put all the items. I can change the rotation to 90 so we've got a better view of it, and then I can up the transparency so we can kind of just about see it, but it's not like causing us any issues. Okay, so what we'll do next is create the main shape. So let's select a rectangle, and then we can change the shape of this. Let's change the width to something like let's say 650. You know what I'm going to do actually is I want to make sure this image is kind of central to the object. So if I go back to those play options, because then everything's centered on 0 when I'm moving stuff around. So then we can actually offset this image. So that looks about right. So that's better. Okay. So let's say 640, no, 660. And then like 180 maybe. For the height, yes, and then for the rounding 90, because half of 180, that gives us this perfect half circle. Okay, so let's change the plane of this. Let's change it to XZ. Pushes it up, but it's also kind of the wrong way around, so let's just rotate that through 90 degrees. So now we've got that sitting. And then what I'm going to do is with Alt selected, I'm going to click on extrude, and so now it's extruded it. I'm in version 23 of Cinema, so that kind of auto chooses the direction. That's kind of a new feature, but otherwise, you know, it's the normal X, Y, Z, so probably Y for this. I'll just leave it on auto. I'm going to give it an offset of maybe 3, and then for caps, let's change that to 3 maybe. Now what I also want to do here actually is add on some holes. It's probably a good time to do that now. So let's be for the screws down the line, and also give us our positioning for the kind of trucks underneath. So with the circle, let's make this a radius, well, 5. Okay, and let's position that. Maybe 4 is actually better for this. Okay, copy that. Move one along, and let's copy both, move them down, copy all 4, move those over here. Not super exact, but I'm assuming I can just line everything up, that'll be fine. So with all those selected, I am going to rotate them, so let's rotate these guys. 270 is 90 degrees, but I think because I've got them all selected, it said 270. And then we want to make sure that they're on the same position as this Y. When the Y is in the extrude, its position is 0. So let's throw all of those in there, and then go to the coordinates here, and let's change that position to 0. Now they should all be sitting. Yeah, that's cool. Now, if I turn on extrude, you'll see that it's just extruding one hole, because it's just extruding whichever line is at the top, whichever spline is at the top. So we want to kind of connect these all together so it extrudes them all as one shape. So let's just select the rectangle at the bottom, and I'm going to hold down Alt, and then up here I'm going to select the connect object. It does what it says, and let's throw all of those circles into the connect object. So now it's extruding that one shape with those holes. So that's cool, so we're good with that. So with that done, let's have a look on our side. Let's get our extrude, board base. And I'm going to move this down. Actually, I don't need to move it down. We can just leave it where it is for the moment because I want to kind of make this shape. So I'm going to get a spline, and if I just pick at one end, and we've got these, obviously these handles, pull it along. Now, I'm not super keen on just this turn, and I've seen you have boards where it kind of comes down then comes back up again. So what I'm thinking is maybe I'll put one here, like that, and then it will kind of straighten off, and we'll tweak this in a minute. No, this isn't perfect, so we'll neaten it up. I'm just going to go halfway because I'm going to put a symmetry object. Actually, I might as well put the symmetry object in now. So with that spline selected, hold down Alt, and then let's get a symmetry object, and then we're going to change the plane, the mirror plane, XY. You can see where it's not just joining, but that's fine. So we just want to neaten this up. So let's go to our spline, change it to 0 in here under adaptive, so we get a kind of a smoother spline. And then let's just have a play with how this looks, so it kind of looks a bit nicer. Kind of want this kind of shape. So it kind of comes down then goes back up again. I want to make sure that here and here are definitely on the same flat plane. So we've both selected, we can pick size, change that to 0, so now they're perfectly aligned. And then what we want to do now is obviously bring these close together, make sure they join up reasonably close, and we can make sure they join up in a moment. So with that selected, let's go to the symmetry, and we're gonna current state to object. We can delete the symmetry. Here it's just created one spline, one single spline, but we've got those kind of odd bits in the middle, and I didn't have them quite joint up. So with both of those selected, both of them, I can go up to spline and then segments, say join segment. So now they're one object, and I can probably actually just delete that point. So now we've got this continuous spline. Now we've got our board, we've got our shape. So now we want to get that board into that shape. And to do that, we're going to use a spline wrap. So first thing I'll do is just group the board, and we'll get a spline wrap and drop that in. Okay, and then our spline is going to be this one. Now let's just call this bold. And you see that this is totally wrong, and you can see that because if you click on the spline wrap, we've got this arrow, and it's obviously pointing in the wrong direction. So I'm going to change that. We rotate this around. I want this to be -180. And then also it's obviously on its side. So let's rotate that around again. Let's make that 90. So now we've got the board in the right shape, and it's kind of got some funky displacements going on because it hasn't got enough geometry in the scene for it to be able to know what it's doing. And to give us some nice smooth edges. So to do that, let's just hide the spline wrap. So it's still functioning, but it's hidden. And what I want to do is go to the board. So there's a couple of things actually. So I'm going to go to the rectangle to start with. I'm going to change this from adaptive to uniform. Actually, if I just go back a step and we turn on ground shading with lines, you'll see at the moment this spline around the edge, it's given us all these points here and then nothing, and then all these points here. So if we change this to uniform, see now we've got a uniform number of points the whole way round. I'm going to up this to say like 20. It's like kind of a nice amount. And then we've also got this problem here because currently with the extrude, if we go to caps, it's currently selected as n-gons, and n-gon is basically like a funky polygon, but it's just basically one surface. We want it to kind of be split up so it can kind of work out how to navigate all of these curves. So let's change this from n-gon to say regular grid. And you see already now we've got that nice smoother shape. Now we've obviously got a lot of build up around here. You can change the size of the grid. You want to try and make it, I guess, as close as possible to 1,000 definitely isn't right. As close as possible to what you've got around the edges. You can change this slightly by going to quad dominant. That kind of cleans it up a bit. We've still got a bit of a mess here. Now we also have this option. I don't know if this is in previous versions of Cinema, this Delaney, which is kind of quite a funky effect. I mean, it would look quite nice for trying to break this apart down the line if you wanted to, but that kind of is a bit smarter about how it deals with the issues you've got around here than you had with regular grid. I mean, that will work fine, but I'm gonna stick with Delaney for now, just because I think, you know, it gives us a nice smooth result. Okay, cool. So now we've done that, let's go to display, let's go to garage shading, and what I'm gonna do is actually, we're seeing a little issue in there. That's something to do with the Fong tag, I think. It might be because of this Delaney. Now you can change the density. So if I go back to ground shading with lines, you know, we could up this and it will fill it in more, give us more detail, and hopefully, yeah, that cleans that up. Yeah, so we didn't have that oddity going on. Okay, so with that done, call this one called base. I'm going to group over these, and we're going to call this baseboard. This baseboard as well, because we're going to duplicate this and create kind of the surface. Well, okay, so if we just copy this and call this surface, call it surface board. I'm just going to move this up a little bit, and then I want to amend our splines here. So what I want to do is our main rectangle, actually our extrude, I'm going to change first. I might make this rounding of like 1, then object, I'm going to make offset of 1. They're kind of slightly breaking into each other, but that's okay. Then for the rectangle, I want to change the size slightly. So if we get the spline wrap for this one, we could change the offset slightly. So maybe we change the offset by 1, and then 2, sorry, not offset. We change the from at 1% rather than 0, and 2 to 99%. So you probably even a bit more than that. So 99.5 to 0.5. So it's just bringing it in just a tiny amount. Right to the edge on the edges, but we can change that. We go to rectangle, and we're going to change the height to like 178, 176. There you go. So it's just sitting in. Okay, so now I'm back in the side view, and what I noticed is that my holes were kind of, if you see it in line here, they were far too much on this bend, because I'd added this bend in. So what I've done is just went into the connect object and just slid them along, so they were kind of more sitting on top. Okay, so with that done, let's have a look at what we've got going on down here. So what I want to do is add in a cube, and let's just make this quite thin. Come down here. Let's just say I want kind of like a padding part, and then the metal part that's going to sit underneath. So I'm going to make this bit like, yeah, like 4, and then make this what, 60, 70, something like that. I want it just below, so maybe this needs to be higher, so 7. Doesn't matter, this is going into the holes, because we're just going to basically have the head of the nail screw sticking in there. We're not doing this so it's like totally perfect, just doing it so it kind of looks nice. Okay, we'll put a fillet on there of 2, and then we obviously want to make this thinner, so let's bring this down so it's kind of something like that. That's our kind of top, let's call that buffer. That's like the top buffer between, that's like the rubber part between the board and the metal part. So Let that again. Let's bring it down and make this one thinner. So let's say 5 in there. And then what we're going to do is, you know, an actual board. If I just go to, let's close this. If I go to here, you can see an actual board. You know, it kind of has this weird metal shape, which is for the kind of the axle connection here. And then I guess this is like the shock absorber over here. So we're going to have a go at building that. We're going to go and do a representative version, I guess. It's not going to be like, you know, factory perfect. So let's select this. We'll call this metal top. Probably actually turn the fillet off that because we're going to put that into a volume builder to kind of create this weird shape. I'm going to turn the fillet off on this one as well, and let's just change the shape of this. So I'm going to make this, let's say, what's that, 60 by 15 by 15 maybe 20 by 20. 12. Okay. I'm not as rehearsed as normal. Normally I try and rehearse these, but I'm just wanted to, you know, get a tutorial out, so I'm just flying straight into it. So it's not going to be as I'm not going to know exactly what I'm doing straight off the bat. I'm just kind of going from memory. Okay, so we'll copy that, and I want to kind of have, there's like another part over here that's kind of a little bit longer. This is kind of the shock absorber part, so let's just get that a bit deeper like that. Maybe bring this back a little. So going for that kind of shape, right? And these are both too wide, so let's just grab both of these and make it kind of squarish. We'll do the same for this one. Oh, wrong part. Okay. Let's just make them both the same. Oh, not 22 meters, 22 centimeters. 22. Okay. And then what we'll do is select the metal top part, hold down Alt, and then get a volume builder, and then underneath there as well get a volume mesher. With Alt held down, that will automatically put everything in the right place. And then we want to add these two parts in there as well. Let's go to Ground Shading, and we'll take this down to like 1, so it's quite square, but if we add some smoothing in, nicely smooths it all out. So now, you know, we're getting something. This is what volume builder is nice for, is, you know, creating something that's like a, you know, a molded piece, which would be kind of difficult to do if we wanted to model it all from scratch. It would be definitely difficult to do very quickly. Okay, so let's just position that. This front part, I might rotate that around a little bit more. Okay, now let's get a cylinder, and this will be the axle. So we want this to be plus Z, no, plus X. And let's bring this down and get this roughly into position. So probably want that to be about there. And then what we want to do is this, we need a connection from here to there. So let's duplicate that cylinder. And then I want it to be positioned on the same angle as this kind of buffer 2 here. So I'm going to PSR that to that. I'm going to change this to Y, bring that cylinder back out again. So now we've got that in the exact same angle as that. To move it. Scale it down a little. It looks like it's coming out of that position, and then you can see that the axle is just off. So let's extend this across, be to like there, and we'll call this axle so we can keep track of what we're doing. And we'll call this axle top. Okay, so I want to connect these two objects. So let's call this I don't know the exact names for all these parts, obviously. Okay, and so these two, let's select the axle and then go Alt, Volume Builder, Volume Mesher, those together. Take this down to 1. We've got this shape, but this doesn't look quite right. If you see the real ones, we want kind of a smoother shape coming out here. So let's add a smooth. Let's maybe, let's just leave that as is for the moment. And then what I want to do is with this axle top, I want to kind of spread it out at the bottom. So let's hold down Alt, and then I'm going to go up here to these deformers, and I want to get I want a FFD, okay? Put that underneath. Now I'm going to fit to parent. This will give us more of that curve. So at the points at the bottom, let's expand it out. And now we're getting that kind of like curvy sort of shape. We go to our volume builder. We want to make sure the smooth is at the top. There we go, so it's kind of bringing them together. And then this FFD, let's select the points in the middle and drag those down a little bit. We get that kind of nicer shape to it. And what I might do is we'll get a torus, add that onto this axle just to get the PSR of it. It's gonna make it all go funky and weird. Bring it out, and then we'll just scale this down. Cap that off at the top. Okay, so now we've got that kind of nice connection to it. So what we have is actually another bar that comes down here, the shock absorber. So let's get another cylinder, and actually we'll probably just grab this one, rid of that FFD, and we want that one to kind of be in line with this box, which is buffer 1. So let's under there, let's PSR it, bring it back out again, and then let's move this down. And now the weird thing about this is it kind of like goes through the object, right? It kind of goes through, and this has a wraparound on it. It's kind of a interesting design. So what I'm going to do is, with that selected, we're actually going to copy it, and then in here, this volume builder, we're actually going to, I'll call this cut out. Going to cut this away, so you see now we've got kind of a gap in there, and then I'm going to copy that again, and then we're going to kind of create this ring that kind of goes round. This is like how it connects. So let's extrude this out, expand this out a little bit, maybe like that. I'm going to add this in as well. Pull this one, and then extend this up. We end up with this quite complicated shape, but it didn't actually take that much effort. Now I'm going to copy this torus again, add it into this axle and PSR that. We kind of add this buffer in, and then add another one down here, and then let's down here, and then this whole section I'm just going to move up, and what I want to do is just give it some fill it on the end. Maybe we'll make this like a 1, and then what we'll do is add some like screws in later to kind of neaten that up. But we end up with this quite complicated kind of setup, but hopefully it's not too much effort. Hopefully you can kind of have a play around to see how all these things can kind of interconnect. Right, okay, let's create these wheels. So the first thing, I just want to hide this like mesh deformer. I want to tidy this up here. So I'm going to group all these toruses together, and we're going to call them like washers. I guess they're like rubber washers or something like that. This is the like shock absorber. think that's what it is anyway. I'm not sure. This is our axle. And within the axle, I just want to hide the FFD, the deformer. That's our buffer, so I'm going to put that at the top, and that's our actual top metal part. Okay, so that's all cool. We'll group all that together, and I'll call this, I think these are called trucks. Is that what you call them? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't actually skateboarded since I was a kid, so I think that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's get the axle, and I'm going to get that main axle. I'm going to use this as our guide for the wheels. So with object selected, I'm going to give that a radius of 25 and a height of 25. Okay, so that's kind of looks about right, kind of a wheel shape. Kind of move it along the end about there. Now, what I'll do is I'll say I want caps, add caps. I'm going to do a radius of like 6. Yep. And then I'm going to make this editable. We're going to polygon mode, and I've got a loop selection tool, or you can just obviously, you know, select each of the individual items. But if you have the loop selection tool, just select both sides, and then we're going to kind of give this a bit more shape. So I've got the extrude inner tool, so I'll just extrude that in a little bit. And if you want to know how to kind of get these kind of shortcuts, I'll put a link to a previous video I did which kind of shows you how to set this up. So I'll put that link above. Okay, let's extrude this in a bit more. And I've just extruded it in a bit there, so when we put it into a subdivision service, it gives it a bit of definition. I'm going to go extrude inner again. I'm going to come in. Then I think I'm going to extrude in a little bit like that. Now let's hold down Alt and press the subdivision surface, or add a subdivision surface, so then we can see this sort of wheel shape kind of taking form. With this section in the middle here, what I might do to tighten that edge up, I'm just going to add a little cut there, because a loop cut. I might add one there. Have a look. Yeah, that's nice. And I'll see if I can push, or I want to kind of see if I can give that a little bit more depth, but I don't want it to kind of cross over with this one. So I'm just going to scale it here. You see there, it's going to cross over. So I think that's probably about enough. Yeah, so that's cool. So that's our wheel, and our axle is obviously reaching. So let's do a couple of things. Let's rename this. We'll name this wheel. Call this wheel as well. And then in our axle, we get our main axle, and I'm going to make this a bit longer. So let's make this like 125, 135. Yeah, I want it to kind of connect 140. That'd be enough. There we go. Oh no, it's too much. 135. So I guess it's quite tight, but that will be good. I think kind of makes sense. So the way that we're going to animate this using deformers, what I would usually suggest is that, you know, if you're going to duplicate something, is to actually make an instance of it, and make 4 instances, and they're all your wheels, or 3 instances from your main wheel. But with the way that we're going to be deforming it to get like our twists and bends and things like that, it won't play. Instances don't seem to play ball. It all goes all funky and it goes weird, so you're going to have actual copies. So I think before we do the copy, we should probably put our nuts and bolts on here to kind of look like this is being pulled together. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is, well, what you can do actually is, if we go to the content browser, you can actually search up here, see, like for screw or for bolts, and you might find them in there. But I'm going to try and like at least do, you know, some of it in here. So I'm going to put like a kind of some sort of bolt on here. I'm going to get a cylinder, and I'll PSR it to wheel. I'm going to go +X, And I just want to make this, I'm going to do these very simply. So I'm just going to make that 6-sided. And let's shrink this right down. Let's make this 50. Let's shrink this right down. Like that. This is going to kind of be our bolt that sticks out. It's kind of holding our wheel on. Okay. And what I want to do is make that editable. Then I'm going to add a bevel on there. Maybe we'll just make this like 0.5. And I'm going to say current state to object. That's kind of saved that. So I've got that shape. I'm going to hold down Alt, get the subdivision surface. Then I'm going to, with my loop selection, select in the middle here. I'm just going to extrude this out a bit. Maybe again. Maybe bring this in. I'm just having a guess at how this might look. But just gives it kind of a bit of interest, this kind of bolt sort of thing sticking out the end. Let's just call this bolt. What we could actually do, because this is going to be within each of the wheels, let's put our bolt actually in the wheel. Then we can just use one subdivision surface for both of those. You can see it's a bit rough around the edges. We could obviously up the amount of subdivisions and that will give us more detail. Now what I might do is just bring this bolt a little bit closer in, maybe like there. And then I might select this ring here. Actually no, I'm going to select that ring there. And then I'm going to go select. I want to do fill selection. Hold down shift and select that so it keeps that previous selection as well. I'm just going to pull this out a little bit. Then I might just select these, pull that in a bit. I don't know if a bolt actually looks like that, but we're trying to make it look interesting. You know, the more angles we've got, the more interesting it will look. Okay, so that's cool. So that's our wheel. So let's copy that. And then we can rotate it 180. And then this wheel on the X axis. So this is let's call that 68. I'm going to put this one on minus 68. And then we've got our two wheels. So that's looking good. And then we obviously want to put bolts up here. Now, what we could probably do is just grab these same bolts. Just grab that and I'm going to put that into a subdivision. Set that up. Alt. And then subdivide. Yeah, that's it. And then let's call this bolt. And now let's rotate this. 180, 90. Maybe we'll make these a little bit smaller. Bring it down. Then move this up. Now, like I said, you know, you could grab actual bolts and screws from content browser. You know, we've got screws and bolts in here. I think if you type in bolt, you know, we've got these that you could add in. I think I might grab the screws just because it's going to be a pain to create this screw shape. So I might grab the screw to put in the top. I just want the head of the screw basically. But with this bolt, I might actually shrink that a bit like that. Then just kind of attach that on. Bring one over here. Grab again. And like I said again, you know, I would usually just make instances of these or clones or something, but because we're putting it in this deformer, it doesn't seem to like that. So it needs to be kind of edited pieces. So we're going to have to probably break down the skateboard itself as well. So that's kind of that whole truck sort of thing set up. We've just got those screws on the top. So let's grab all of these, stick them in, and then we can grab these and go object. Let's group those and call those bolts. Both wheels, we'll grab those. Those wheels. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. So then what we can do is just copy, paste the whole thing. We'll call this, I guess it doesn't matter what's back or front, but let's call this back. And then these ones we'll call front. Okay, and we've got two options. We can either rotate this around, obviously makes sense. The other option you can do is for when you want to try and flip any sort of object like this, is you can actually change the scale into a minus. So you could say like -Z, and that will flip it as well. So that's just another little trick that I use. Okay, so let's go into our side view. Get this roughly lined up. Kind of there. We're not that far off what were our original diagram. Okay, cool. And I just want to go to the lines. Yeah, because I want to make sure that at least, I know our screws and our bolts are not lining up perfectly, but man, no one's going to notice that. Okay, you know, all people are going to care about is, you know, you can definitely tell that's a skateboard. Okay, right. So now I just want to put these screws in the top. So the reason the reason I put holes in both was just so that the tops of the screws, I want them to kind of sit kind of just inside, but obviously the inside of the screw goes down, so I didn't want the inner ball to be cutting into it. So let's just grab, I'm going to go to that content browser. Let's just grab one of these screws. This is super handy. I'm going to get rid of the material. Obviously, if you're using physical renderer, you could use that material. And then let's just go into a side view. Screw is all the way up there. And let's just increase the size. If I wanted to do this right, I guess I'd probably line everything up, but there's no way you're going to see both you're not going to see the top and the bottom at the same time. So I'm fine with that. Yeah, so that's sticking into there, so that's fine. Let's just grab another one. Then this one, we want it to be like rotated. What we could do is probably have it up here, and then if we do an effect where we remove that top part, it's so fantastical, it's not going to matter that it's just that bit of screw is sticking out. Put these into position. That's how I want it, kind of like that. So it's just kind of like sitting up. Grab this one. Into position. Yep. And then we can copy those. Bring those across. And then the two flat ones, so that one and that one. Copy those. These across. Yep, nice. Copy those again, drag these across, and then we can just rotate, push these into position. Cool. Okay. Right, so now we've got all that done. Now we could probably start either texturing up or to start preparing for animation. So what we'll do is just group these object. Let's group objects. We'll just call these screws. I'm going to put these in the top in the board because I'm going to say they kind of join together. Group these, and these are, I know, leave those. I'm going to group everything together. That skateboard. Okay, now what I'll probably do is we'll save this project. I'm going to call this one Unbroken because I need to break apart that bottom section so that it will, I can actually do some effects on it. So we call this Unbroken, and then I'm going to go back to my original. Yeah, replace it. So if anything goes wrong, I can always go back.